What's up, nerds? Welcome back. Today we're talking about a book that still gets attention, the kind of attention you might get if you were trying to do the squats while you had the squirts. That's right, we're talking about Superman, Son of Kal-El, number 8. Now, in case you're wondering, no, I did not do a review for issue number 7 because I didn't really care. That was the start of this whole environmentalist bullshit that they're doing with this book. And so it introduced the problem of having this giant sea creature that came about because of something. Something happened that man was disturbing it in some way, and that roused it. Oh yeah, all the oxygen got sucked out of the water from where it was at, so it woke up and was all pissed. So it's one of those situations. But anyway, we saw where Superman, of course, shows up, and then as you can see from the cover, also Jackson Hyde is also there. So he's also trying to help deal with the situation. And then Henry Bendix sent his personal team of superheroes called the Gamora Squad or something like that. I think it was the Gamora Squad. Whatever. It's in here somewhere. I'll get to it. Anyway, so yeah, they started fighting with it, and of course Bendix's people wanted to kill the thing. Superman and Aquaman don't, or Aqualad don't. So that's where we have this issue where they're trying to figure that out. And then one of the Gamora Squad got killed. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, Bendix was the reason why he died. So I mean, that's where we're picking up. We're literally you have what's his name, the pink haired J one. He's over here talking about he's basically narrating everything that's going on, and he's talking about how he Superman did everything he could, and so Superman is flying there. He asks, what's his name, and they're like, his name, it was Sparks. So he says, I'm going to take him to shore. And what is this face that he's making? Who thought this? I get it, he's sad, but what is this face? Anyway, so they're all confused. They're like, what? There's a rampaging monster. You're going to leave. So that's when, of course, Jackson comes up. He's like, she wasn't rampaging before you attacked her. So Superman's even asking, you want to help? And they say, of course. It's the Gamora Core. There it is. It was the Gamora Core. Because that's less stupid. So they're like, well, Superman says, then please, just don't do anything till I come back. And that's when we go over to Bendix, because basically he's mind controlling all of them. And so his scientists are asking, what do you want to do? He's like, I want to show the world what our forces are capable of. There's a monster heading for Metropolis. Kill it. So, of course, they all open fire and shit. So, of course, John hears it and is like, oh no. So he flies back. This time he looks a little bit more upset. And then we also see where Jackson is just kind of there impotently, just like, what are you doing? And then he kind of sends up a water lash at them and kind of knocks them out of the way. So then we see where they fly up even higher because now they've pissed off the giant Leviathan. So Jay is even narrating, saying, the Leviathan leapt at its attackers, a creature the size of a city block, launching out of the water. So, of course, you can imagine what that would do, because as you can see, this is how high up it jumps. So, I mean, yeah, that's going to create a really big problem when it comes back down, which is the crux of this issue. Anyway, so Jay is on the boat that him and his team work and sometimes live on or whatever, and he's even saying we should get off the boat, and she's like, yeah, definitely. So they yell out to everyone for them to get off and shit, but we don't actually see how they get off or where they go or what happens. But all we're given is that they said get off and everybody got off, so everybody's fine. Anyway, so we see where, like I said, the giant monster comes crashing back down and creates a damn tsunami. So, of course, Superman is going to have to now try and deal with this, but he has no idea how. So he goes and asks Jackson, what do we do? And he's like, I can pull some of the water away, but not enough to save Metropolis. So he's like, well, what can I do? That's when he tells him acoustic gravity waves, and he's like, huh? So he says noise, lots of it, a deep ocean blast. You'll have to cut through the water at the speed of sound, but the kind of force you'd need to generate. So, of course, this seems impossible, but it's supposed to be one of those situations where you're like, but it's not impossible for Superman. So that's when we see John does this shit where he just creates a giant sonic boom by clapping his hands together underwater. And so it says, there was a sound we felt in our chests, a sound like thunder, and the wave dwindled in front of our eyes. What reached Metropolis was damaging, but it would have been utter destruction if Superman hadn't acted. And then we see where he goes around, at kind of super speed, saving as many people in the like the waves path before they get hit. And then it even says like the people who were swept up in the water, like Jackson went and like saved them and everything. So that's when he finds Jay, and Jay tells him like, I'm fine, go do what you do, save the city. So we see where he's doing that. And then he's kind of like he's using his super breath to like freeze some of the water before it like takes out buildings and shit. So then we see in the background where Lex Luthor is watching all of this, and he's been in contact with Bendix. So he tells Lex Luthor, he tells him like, yes, Luthor, your city is getting a little damp. To which Lex says, for a project called The Rising, there's an unfortunate amount of sinking. You may want to consider a rebrand. So he tells him, don't worry, Luthor, my people are about to deal with the monster. So then we see where apparently the monster kills another one of the Gamora Corps. I'm not sure which one. It was one of the other guys because the girl is still alive. Anyway, so they keep fighting, and then we see where apparently their attack actually breaks through the thing's outer armor, like the armored shell. So that's when she's about to come in for the death blow. But of course, Superman wasn't going to have that, so he just catches her fist and is like, stop. And then she's asking, like, what are you doing? There's a monster coming for your city and you're fighting us? He says, I'm not fighting you. I don't want to fight anyone. And then we see where he almost got hit by the damn, like, monster, and he just kind of, like, uses his other arm to stop it. And this is one of those things I was talking about, how they go back and forth on the way he's drawn. If you will notice the way he's drawn here, he's actually drawn muscular, which makes sense. But every other like page in this book, he's basically drawn as like a skinny little twink. Can y'all find some consistency within the damn book of how he looks? Please. I get it, he's using his strength right now, but that shouldn't like mean that his body mass just doubles in those 5 minutes and then goes back to being tiny. That's not how this works.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Anyway, so she's telling him, like, you can end this in a heartbeat. Like, you're Superman. You could fly through this thing's brain and kill it if you want. To which Jackson's like, you think Superman can fly through a living being's brain? Yeah. He can absolutely do that. He could do that to any of us without even trying. He could just reach his hand through our skulls and kill us. So yes, he can do that. Will he do that? No. But can he? Yes. Then he says, I think you missed the point of Superman. I think you missed Superman's actual potential. Anyway, he says, you've lost 2 team members. There have already been too many deaths today. Stop your attack, go back to Metropolis and help. Please. So that's when we cut back over to Bendix, where they're asking, like, well, what do we do? He's like, go back to the city? Yeah, that's a good idea. I can definitely make that work. So he has them fly back to kind of like help people or whatever. So now they're stuck with figuring out, okay, what do we do about the giant monster? So that's where Jackson is saying she's hurt and she's angry. I don't know how we're going to turn her around. How strong are you? Can you just push her? And this is one thing I want to point out here, because Jon says she's too big. I'd be like a needle trying to push against an elephant. I'd go straight through. It's funny how we have this thought about the physics of that type of thing now, but back when Superman was carrying an entire bridge that had a bunch of cars and like 18-wheelers on it, that wasn't the problem then. It would have been the exact same principle. As a matter of fact, they said that this thing is the size of a city block. I'm pretty sure that bridge would span multiple city blocks. And he was able to carry that, like, just flying in the middle, holding it up with 2 hands. He wasn't worried about being, a needle up against an elephant that time. But apparently here is when we worry about the physics of it. Whatever. So Jackson says, wow, that's descriptive. So he's like, well, yeah, it would be pretty unpleasant. So he says, I need to make myself bigger. And then this is his solution. He goes down and cuts out a giant slab of rock that somehow doesn't break when he pulls it up. And then he uses that to start nudging the monster, like, gently away. And it says, we don't know what happened out there, but the Leviathan didn't come back. And so that's where we see that the actual Aquaman showed up and was, like, using his, his telepathic powers on it, and he's saying, like, don't worry. And then Jackson says, pretty big creature not to worry about, Arthur. And he's like, well, the ocean is vast, Jackson, we'll find a place for her. So Jon is trying to say she was hurt, and he's like, she'll be okay, thank you, both of you. Her thoughts are big, but she's grateful too. So that's when he kind of like takes off with Jackson as well, but not before Jackson tells John, like, if you ever want to come live in the sea, you're always more than welcome. Is that his way of hitting on him? Because don't forget, they're both bi. Well, actually, I think Jackson's just straight up gay, but apparently they're both into the boys. So if they're both into the menses, it might possibly be. Anyway, I don't know. So Superman comes back and it says Superman saved the city, but with all his power, with X-ray vision, microscopic vision, telescopic vision, he couldn't see all the lives he'd saved. He could only see the life that was lost. So, a man who hadn't hesitated in the face of a Leviathan was frozen in the face of the death he felt he could have prevented. While 1,000 cameras streamed the moment around the world, Superman was attacked in another way. So that's when the girl comes, like from the Gamora Corps, comes back and she says, "You could have helped us instead of getting in our way. You could have put the creature down in a second, long before it was a threat. Look at your city. Look at the dead. This didn't have to happen. You could have stopped this." So it says harsh, vile words cut straight through invulnerable skin. So he just says, "I'm sorry," and then he flies away looking all depressed and shit again. So that's when we go over to Bendix basically taking his victory lap as he's giving this little like presentation about the Gamora Corps. So he welcomes everybody for coming, and he starts talking shit about, John, saying that yesterday his actions led to death and millions of dollars in damage to Metropolis. The son of an alien with the powers of a god chose to protect a monster over humanity. So he says this new, inexperienced, and reckless Superman recently had a conversation with a prominent businessman. With all he can see and hear, Jon Kent explained the world needs saving. Superman is right. The world does need saving. It needs protecting. But our greatest weapons and defenses are useless. Governments and armies are effectively powerless. We live in a world no longer under our control because of them. So he's talking about, the Justice League. So anyway, he says, today we're on the cusp of something momentous. And this is basically where he starts telling them that he's been developing his own like heroes and shit like that. He says, for years we have been developing our own post-humans. And then he goes on to give this weird-ass example by saying there was an idea, a covert group operating out of the U.S. known as Task Force X, colloquially known as the Suicide Squad. Powered criminals who reduced their sentences by doing dangerous work for their government. We also missed something in there. It was supposed to be secret, dangerous work for the government. So, I mean, it's not a surprise to me that he somehow found out about it, but wouldn't this be a little bit of a bombshell for, the audience who's here who probably had no idea that the government had supervillains? I think he mentioned that they were supervillains. Yeah, powered criminals. So he mentions that they're powered criminals that the U.S. government basically conscripted to carry out, black ops missions for them. And he just drops that as if it's like a thing. And he even goes even further by saying a bomb was placed in their heads to keep them in check. I have taken this idea to the next stage. Which, I mean, anyone with any sane rationale would hear that and think, what would be better than having a bomb in your neck? Like, how are you going to say that you took that to the next level or to the next stage? He says, our perfect powered soldiers are not loose cannons. They are completely under our command. And then he just says they're basically drones, and then he kind of like demonstrates where he can talk through them, he can make them act, control not just their powers, but their every move. With these, nations will have power again. We will destroy and discredit the aliens and Amazons. We will replace the ocean dwellers and the dark knights. This is how we take back our world. This is the rising. So that's where we go back over to John and Jay, and we see the end of like Jay's little whatever it is, his video, where he's talking about Superman did so much. He did everything he could. He probably believes he could have done more, but a city is still standing because of him. And I hope he realizes just how loved he is by the people of Metropolis and by you, right? Anyway, so John is there and he's like, yeah, thanks for that. And he's like, well, just reporting the truth. It's in the name. Anyway, he says yesterday was a hard day, and Superman tells him, Aquaman invited me to go live in the sea, and it honestly sounds pretty good. He says, I know intellectually I saved far more people than I lost. And then Jay is like, but people aren't numbers. So he's like, yeah. And then he does this whole thing where he says, I was thinking about your job offer. And he says, hey, if me being your boss is weird, just remember you're Superman, so there's no like power imbalance or whatever the hell. And he says, being one of the most recognizable people on the planet is, well, it's a lot. I was thinking about the good you're trying to do and the anonymity. And I'd be up for doing good work while disappearing behind a mask. So he asks, like, so you're joining us? He says, it's either that or committing to life under the sea. And then, of course, we get them kissing again, and then Jay tells him, "Welcome to the truth, Jon Kent. We're going to piss off a lot of powerful, corrupt people who've had it too easy for too long." And apparently to Jon, that sounds perfect. So, oh God. It's another one of those Teen Titans Academy situations where I'm like, at this point, I really only read it, not even to laugh at it, just to see how much further down the drain this is going. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever just had that morbid curiosity where you're watching, like, I don't know, say you're watching a medical, like, procedure and you're seeing someone's, like, tumor-ridden liver being taken out or some shit like that. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like watching something that's gross, not because they're gay, watching something that's really gross and just off-putting and just even in some ways possibly upsetting, and you sit there and you just kind of marvel at it and you're just like, wow, this is a thing that's actually happening. This is a thing I'm actually beholding with my own two eyes. That's a little bit what this is like. That's basically what I get from this. It's that morbid sense of entertainment, I guess. So, at least for that, I guess it's good enough for that, but I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep up with this. I may get to issue 10, should there happen to be an issue 10. I may get that far and then just decide I'm done. I'm out. Because there's nothing here. You know what I mean? Like, he's not even really a hero. And this is my other problem. Like, they keep bringing in... I have no problem with legacy characters. I have a problem when you have this situation where you have the legacy character take over from, like, Clark Kent, and he doesn't even know how to be a hero yet. You know what I mean? Like, you were in the future with the Legion of Superheroes. You worked with Damian Wayne Robin as the Super Sons. How do you not know how to handle anything on your own? Granted, this is a really big thing, but at the same time, it's like, you could have figured something out, but every time you turned around, he was always just reacting, which is how you know he's not really the hero of the story. The hero of the story is supposed to be proactive, not reactive. So that's where you have this problem where he's flying around, he's like taking the fallen comrade, which you would think if they actually cared about him, they would have dealt with him. So he's taking like the fallen Gamora Corps member off, like, to land to leave him there, and then he flies back because they start firing at the monster, so he has to try and stop them. And then he asks Jackson, well, what do we do? And then from there he has to try and figure out, like, okay, I need some way to, like, push the thing or whatever. So, and then Aquaman comes to, you know, basically guide the monster away. And then he just kind of goes and he's trying to, like, save people before they get hit by the wave. That's what I'm saying. He's constantly just reacting to everything else that's happening. He never actually takes proactive measures to fix anything. And if he does, somebody else has to give him instruction on what to do. So that's how I'm saying, like, he's not a hero. He's not a hero. He's definitely not the hero of this book. Like, and then especially doing this whole shit where he's going to team up with his little boyfriend and work with him to do clandestine little, like, missions to piss off a bunch of people. Like, how is that Superman? It isn't. The answer is that's not Superman. This is not Superman. Like, this is just something else. This is some game that they're fucking playing. This is so Tom Taylor can take victory laps and pat himself on the back whenever, you know, people think that his book isn't selling all that well, and he can come out and say, oh, well, the reason why issue 6 or whatever didn't sell well enough in December was because it didn't come out till January. Like, okay, bitch, I get it. You're having your little fun on Twitter, but how about you focus on writing a better fucking story? Because this is not that. And I don't know. That's why I'm saying I may get possibly 2 more issues into this if I can manage to read them without wanting to stab out my eyes with a rusty spoon. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what ends up happening. I'm not going to ask if anybody out there picked this up because I get the feeling probably nobody has. Except for maybe like 1 or 2 people. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. That's going to do it for me here before I get even more upset with this whole whatever this is. But yeah, feel free to share any thoughts you have with me down below in the comment section. And if you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Make sure you liked it. Make sure you're subscribed. You have the notification bell on. And if you want to share the video, I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that more than Tom Taylor appreciates any of these characters. So there's that. But anyway, that's going to do it for me here. So if you're done here, go and read a book, stay the hell away from this one. And if not, then I'll see you on my next video.